Take two. All right. So, for those who don't know, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Zach, maybe betterly known as Fortuna, which is my last name. Tends to turn into my nickname for some reason. I don't know. It is what it is. So call me what you will. Um, I am a disc golfer and I love disc golf, and I have been playing since I found the sport when I was 19, back in 2009, I think it was that I started. Anyways, so I've been playing for a little while, and the last few years, not so much, honestly. A lot has happened. If you've seen some of the the latest videos I've posted, they've been few and far between, and I've kind of been all over the place, and a lot has been going on, and I've been working through a lot of stuff, and um, like the big one, dealing with the loss of my mom, and things have been kind of all over the place in my life, and disc golf has kind of fallen. Not that I've fallen out of love with it, but a lot of other priorities kind of came into place. And maybe I kind of wish that I did things a little differently, but I think that is the case with a lot of people with a lot of things. Hindsight's 2020. And ultimately, there's nothing I can do about it now other than live in today and work towards the future. You can't change the past. So um, I've been watching a lot of content lately. I've been getting out the last few days. I want to get back into the sport. Where I want to go with the sport, I'm not exactly sure. I'm I'm pretty decent. I'm not top tier, but I can hold my own. I feel like I have a knack for throwing the disc and figuring stuff out and just having fun with it. Um, throwing. My dad told me one time, he's like, you're pretty good at just chucking stuff, and you have been since you were a kid, which is kind of funny. But anyways, I've been watching, other content creators lately. There's been a lot more that's come up since I was last watching, and there's a lot that I need to catch up on. I'm really curious to see what people have been doing, and there's been a couple people that I've watched that have inspired me to do a couple things, and the main thing is just getting in front of the damn camera. I get in my own way a lot, and that is my biggest downfall, which is getting in my own way and talking myself out of it, out of something. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. It's likely going to be shit, honestly, until you start doing it and you keep doing it. Very similarly to why you found, like, you get invited by some friends to go play some disc golf, and you really enjoy it, but you're bad at it. I mean, you're new. It's kind of expected to be bad at it. You haven't figured out how to throw the disc. You don't know what it is that they do. You probably don't even know how many different types of molds there are, how many companies there are, and so on and so forth. Not that you can't learn that stuff. And some people pick it up faster, other people it takes a little bit longer, and other kind of, like, maybe some, their skill ceiling is as high as they want it to go. They're willing to grind and put in all this effort, do a bunch of research, get coaches, blah blah blah. Or you're the more casual person who's okay with not being the greatest, but you go out because you like to just chuck stuff, hit some chains, hit some metal, sometimes pure some lines, have some good times with your friends and stuff. Wherever there's there's a wide range of where you can kind of fall in on that. So I'm trying to get out of my own way, and I know that this is something I was wanting to do, and maybe it turns into something. I hope it turns into something where um, it's more successful. And the only surefire way that I know it won't be successful is if I keep doing what it is that I've been doing, which is being pretty damn inconsistent with making content. So, with that being said, I know that I've been rambling for a couple minutes, 4 or 5 minutes or whatever, and if you made it through, thanks. I appreciate it for bearing with me. I have seen there have been a lot of in the bag videos, and this is something that I wanted to touch on because we all have our own opinions, and I think a lot of people have really good opinions, and I just wanted to put my own take on it out there of maybe not exactly how you should build your bag, but have an idea of maybe where to start. So this is maybe geared towards the more beginner to intermediate, maybe advanced, not necessarily pro level, but I'm sure every skill set can maybe take away even a little something in this, or maybe I'm just telling you something you already know. Um, so, with that being said, let me go grab my bag and some other discs and stuff to talk a little bit more about what's in my bag and maybe what's not in my bag and why and whatever. So, yeah, hold on. This boy. All right. So here I have two bags, and what am I trying to say here? I got two bags, and I only brought these in just because both of them have a little bit different setup. I just used this to put some discs in. This is my best friend's old Revolution bag. This thing's actually really sick. There's a couple things like just the inner frame of it is made of plastic, so it kind of falls apart in ones that get used and abused. But I think this is one of the honestly better disc golf bags that have been made. But just for the purpose of carrying around some discs and showing you guys some molds that I throw and why, that's why I have this. And then this one here is the older, I think it's not the first generation. I think it's the second generation of the Latitude E. I think it's the E3 bag. This one has been one of my favorites for a while for in terms of bags. And honestly, the reason why I like this bag is because of this bag here, mainly the top pocket. This top pocket is very universal, and you can put a bunch of crap in there. Well, not crap, but you can have a ton of stuff. So I typically have like a towel and a handful of discs. Depending on what it is that I'm doing that day or what course I'm playing, it's almost like the ones that I'm typically throwing all get kind of chucked in there. So anyways, to how I would build my bag. Now, everyone has their own skill set. From brand new player to you've been playing for a decade. And in that period of time, you kind of figure out, like, the longer you play, the more you figure out the type of discs that you like. Um, Maybe when it comes down to feel in the shape of the disc, in the plastic type that you're throwing, in the stability of the disc, in the meaning the way that the disc flies, there's a bunch of different variables. And what I might think is the best disc out there, someone else could throw in, like, wow, this disc is not, like, it's just not it for me for whatever reason. And that could just come down to really simple things. Anywhere from it's just, it doesn't, I can't seem to get a clean release with it. I can't throw it well. The feeling of it, the shape of it, the how I like to throw it just doesn't match up. I mean, all the way up to, like, I think there's people out there that it's not expensive enough, which is kind of silly. But I mean, you do you. If you like throwing more expensive plastic because it's like a mental thing for you or something, then great. I think there's a time and place for something like that. For me, if you're gonna spend a lot of money on some discs, honestly, it would be where you would be making your money. Like if you're a tournament player or just it. That's not the best way of what it is I'm trying to say. It would be the most important part of your game, which would be the ability to finish the hole, namely putting. So if you're gonna put a bunch of money into something, like if the putters that you really like are older and there's not so many and it's maybe like $50 for a set or even $50 for one, to me that makes more sense than buying a $50 distance driver. With drivers, you're trying to get distance out there. They take a lot of wear and tear, a lot of use and abuse, a lot of risk reward, and especially if you're throwing maybe over some water, riskier shots, you want to be able to trust discs that you can easily replace versus, say, something that is like you can have like $100. They're probably more now. Over $100 first run destroyer or something the like, because that is your bread and butter and this and that and whatever. If that's what it is that you need is $100 destroyer, you, in my opinion, you might need to find something else. Anyways, so when I go to build my bag, I view things in, you have your putting putters, you have putt and approach, which can be, for me, it is a few different putters and some utility discs, and then you got your other mid-ranges, fairway drivers, and distance drivers. So let me just show you here exactly what it is that I mean. So in my bag, let's see if you can kind of see. All right, so I've got my throwing putters. Now this is kind of more of a practice setup that I have, so I have a lot more duplicates than I probably would, but I have my throwing putters. These are all the same mold and different wear and tear. I have more approach style, or more utility approach type putters. I don't putt with these. These are meant to be thrown. I actually have one more right here. I have a couple zones and a pig. The pig was in there because I only have 2 zones. I'm kind of surprised. I thought I had at least 2 more, but I'm working with what I've got. And then I've got mid-ranges, and I've got 3 here, and these are all the same mold. These are all rocks, but again, different wear and tear. One's actually a Rock X3, but it's basically a rock, in my opinion. And then you've got, these are all fairway drivers. There's a couple different molds. I got an FD, a T-Bird 3. I've got a Felon and a Firebird, which in my opinion are basically the same disc. They're that same kind of spot. And then I have a Scorch. This one I was just kind of messing around with because to me it flew similar to another disc that I really like, which is the Roadrunner, just very fast. And then up here, I have a few other utility or practice discs that I was just kind of trying to feel out. I've got a couple distance drivers. These are destroyers. I got a couple more of the mid-range utility type discs from Prodigy, which are very overstable discs for obviously utility, and then another FD for that fairway slot, and then I've got some throwing putters that I was just messing around with. So again, this is more of a practice setup style bag where I'm going to my local course. Is this? Dude, this died.
All right, don't change. I don't know how long. Okay, let's see. I don't know how long I was talking until I noticed that my mic actually died. So I went, I went through my bag to show you kind of what it was I was talking about. Hopefully I recorded some of it, but I'll go through it again. Again, my bag was packed a little more full so I could actually practice and throw, which is something I highly recommend you doing, is having some extra discs with you, just to try out, you know. So at least that's what I like doing. I've thrown a lot of discs in my time. Ask anyone that I know that I've played around with multiple times out here in Michigan. I've emptied not only my bag numerous times, but I've emptied out other people's bags, not against their will, maybe a couple against their will, but even just asking, like if you're playing a casual round with some friends or someone you just met and you see something that looks interesting to you or they're talking to you about it, maybe on a hole where it's unlikely that you're going to lose it, because for sure if you lose someone's disc that they let you borrow, definitely replace it or get them something, that did help you out there. But that also gives you an opportunity to try something else out that maybe you'll end up liking but you won't know unless you ask or something. So I've found a lot of things that I've really liked, even just by doing that. I throw someone's, I don't even know at this point. An FD. An FD is one that I threw someone else's that I end up really liking and got a bunch of them. That's one of my most favorite fairway drivers out there. And that is something that if I'm building a bag, whether I have an FD or not, I'm looking for something to basically fill the slot of FD, even if it is not an FD itself. Anyways, let's get these sorted a little bit. Wow, that's let's see here. I'll show you kind of what I'm looking at here. These are all the discs I had in those 2 bags. And building a bag, like, I don't carry around the 2 bags. So I don't have my putting putters in here. They're in the yard. No, actually, let me go grab my freaking putting putters. This is still recording, right? Okay, good. All right, let's go through. Let's see, I've got putting putters. I've got like throwing putters, more utility approach type discs, mid ranges, fairway drivers, and then distance drivers. So there's 6 categories, which maybe it sounds like a lot, but I think that's pretty reasonable. So I have daggers that I putt with. These I got, my buddy Scott got me these. Shout out Scott, you're the fucking awesome. I love you, dude. These are some of my favorite putters. I think they're the Royal Line something, whatever. I know Ricky just went to Discraft this year, but he was putting with daggers, and then I think Discraft is coming out with their own version of dagger. Anyway, I have daggers that I putt with. They fit really good in my hand. I really like the feel of them, and I was able to get a lot of them. I was on Latitude for a couple years, a number of years. It's whatever. It was a while ago. I was able to take advantage, and I found out that I really liked the daggers, and I was able to get a lot of them. So I'm glad that I found out that I really liked them, and then I was able to get a bunch of them from Latitude. Even if I didn't have the discount at the time, I still would get a lot of daggers, because if you're wanting to get good, you got to work on all aspects of the game. The most important part being able to finish the hole, namely putting. So having a nice stack of putters, even if it's just 4, I'd say I like the number 3. Having a set of 2, a lot of people have a set of 2. I think 3 is a better number. I don't know if it's because I like odd numbers or whatever it is, even though I have 4 here. I use these to practice putt with on my days off, or when I'm going and playing. I use daggers. So find yourself a putter that you like to putt with and get a few of them. I would say at least get 2. I think it'd be better 3. But if you're not sure that if you like the putter, get at least 2. So when you're practicing putting, you're not just using 1 to putt with. You make 1 and then what? You can't kind of 2 to make it true, or twice or it's luck kind of thing. You can practice these putts. So get 2 or 3 of a putter that feels good. Maybe you hear someone else talk about it that they really like, or whatever. Definitely go check out Play It Again Sports or Disc Nation if you live in Texas. Find a store near you that sells discs and go feel them for yourself. It's really hard, in my opinion, to buy stuff online, especially if you don't know, if you've never held it before. And I'm not saying not to do that, but it makes it better, in my opinion, when you can actually go and feel the discs themselves, because sometimes they might look really pretty and you're buying it because of looks, but then you feel it and it's doesn't feel so great. I'd say buy more based off of the feel of the disc versus how pretty it looks. I've seen a lot of discs that are very pretty. When I feel them, they do not feel good. So they'd be better as wall hangers, but I need to fix my wall hanging spot. I think discs are better thrown, but I want to display some discs. But that's besides the point. So I found that I really like the daggers. I used to putt with AVRs. I used to putt with Warlocks. And those are all great discs. And I could putt with any of them. I just prefer daggers. And if you're going to be a good putter, you'd be able to putt with basically anything. So go through some putters. Don't be scared to try new things. Um, find yourself some good putting putters. Another note that I have on that would be pick a base plastic. I mean, if you really like the feel of a premium plastic disc, then use that. You know, I've met, I don't remember the guy's name, but he putted with, I believe they were Star Plastic, but I think they were rocks that he putted with, which are a mid-range from Innova, which is not a common thing, but he was quite good at it. He was comfortable with it, and you can't really argue if they're able to score very well and they putt with something that is unconventional. If it works for you, then it works for you, and great. I'd say find something in more of a base plastic because I think you get a better touch with it because you're not throwing a drive with it, which is a different hand feel and grip, versus more of a touch shot is kind of what you're throwing slash putting with. So I don't know. Try a few different molds, try a few different plastics, see what feels good. If you have the option to go somewhere, I'll give a shout out to Ben at Lakeshore in Ypsilanti, Michigan. He has a great store. It's always so much fun to go there. He has a huge selection of used discs, but he has just a huge selection of discs in general. So if you're willing to even, if you live in the area, I would definitely recommend checking out a store like that where you can go feel a ton of discs and pick out what you like. And he's even cooler because he has a stash of discs that he'll actually let you take a couple demo discs out, try them out yourself without actually having to purchase, which I think is a cool thing. Anyways, that's kind of my rambling spiel on putting putters. I'll throw in one more thing on that. Why I have putting putters. There's people that use their putting putters as throwing putters too, even if it's just approach shots. Discs are going to get used and abused, but I don't want to drive off the tee or throw a longer or just approach shots with my putting putters because I don't want to accidentally hit a tree or hit something that's going to warp them, bend them, taco them, or something. I'd rather just all my shots with them are going to be anywhere from a putt to like a long jump putt type thing. Maybe a wide open approach where I'm not putting a whole lot of power or energy into the disc where if it hit a tree, it would even really do anything other than scuff it. But the idea with that is my putting putters are for putting, not throwing. I have throwing putters, and my throwing putters aren't even daggers. The only thing that I use daggers for are for putting. I haven't really thrown them. I'm sure they fly well, but I had found other throwing putters, driving putters, whatever you want to call them, that I liked significantly more. And we'll move on to those right now. So, boom, there's that. Now, these are, I think, one of the most underrated discs out there. And that's okay, because the less people that are throwing them, the more that I have for myself. And this is maybe half of the ones that I own. And these are the Mercy from Latitude 64. And the reason why I actually started throwing these is thanks to Ricky again. When he was on Latitude, I think it was the first time he was on Latitude. And he was throwing, I forget what hole, I believe it was on the back nine. It's a downhill hole. You're throwing from the top of a hill down into some woods. The basket's kind of in a cluster of or in the line of trees a little ways. The hole is, I think, 415, 420 feet. And he threw an orange Mercy and pimped it. And the way that it flew in that really interested me. So I went out and I found and sought out a Mercy, and I know it was a base plastic one that he got, so I bought that. It was like 12 bucks. I might have actually got it at Lakeshore, come to think of it. Anyways, I got it, I started throwing it, and I very quickly fell in love with it. And there is a yellow one that I lost in, oh man, in Kansas at Northwoods Black. And it's a yellow, super beat up Mercy. If for some reason you have it, or yellow KC Aviar that was lost in Addison Oaks, if you have either of those discs, there's a bounty on those. I will pay handsomely. I will give a stack of discs for either of those discs. Anyways, this disc feels great in my hand. I really, really like the flight of it, and it flies very neutral. It's not really overstable. It's not extremely understable. Depending on the plastic you get it in. One of my favorites that were a little more difficult to come by are actually Opto Mercies. And these, being in a more resilient plastic, keep their shot line for a long time before they start beating up. And when they beat up, they turn into what the base plastic ones are, just in a longer period of time. I'll eventually talk about, maybe in another video, about my thoughts and feelings and ideas of how disc wear and tear works. But the more premium the plastic, typically the more resilient the disc is to a longer break-in time. So Opto Mercies were much more difficult to come by, and I saw them one time. I grabbed, I think, two, fell in love with them, and then I found out how hard they were to come by. So I liked them so much that that was something that I bought a bunch of. There was I think one of them was the Idlewild. Yeah, it was the Idlewild tournament a few years back. Who else had them? I went and played the Dynamic Discs Open, and a stack of these got lost in translation. They had a bunch of misprints, a bunch of really, really freaking cool ones. And I know I lost a couple out on the course and stuff, but I bought a bunch of them because since they were misprints are one of the coolest things that you can possibly get, because a lot of times the blemishes that they have don't really affect the disc, and they end up being cooler because they'll double stamp them. They'll have a bunch of stamps on it, and even better, they'll be discounted. So I bought these Opto Mercies. I believe they were 20 bucks a piece. Nothing crazy, not super cheap, but not really expensive. And the ones that were misprinted, I believe, were half off, or $12 a piece or something like that. So I bought a ton of those. Anyways, I still have a ton of these because how much I love them, how well that I throw them, and how much I can trust them. They're just such a money putter to me. And the only ones that were slightly different were some Goldline ones that were much more overstable than all these counterparts, or the counterparts of that one. So maybe I could have one in there, but in my lineup of stuff. But the reason I don't is because it sounded cool. I got a few of them and I started throwing in them. They're much more overstable than the regular, like what I would say the normal flight is, but I didn't throw them because of how they felt. I didn't like how they felt in my hand. Not the shape, but the plastic to how I like throwing this disc didn't work for me. Maybe that's a mental thing, maybe not. But that's, at the end of the day, that's what it was to me. It's just I didn't like the feel of the disc. Not the flight, not whatever. It was just the feel of the disc was just a little too weird to me. So I ended up not throwing them, and I traded them to someone else. So the Opto Mercy is, well, not the Opto, the Mercy is such a great throwing putter. I tried putting with them before, and they, again, just didn't work for me. I don't know what it was. They were a little too glidey when it came to putting. The feel wasn't, it didn't like fill out my hand how I like it, how the daggers did. I can putt with them, but I'm a little more, it's just a little weird for me. Anyways, probably my favorite Mercies are all retro lines. I think, yeah, these three are retro, and then this is just a regular. It's not Pro D. It's Zero Hard is what I'm looking for, and the great thing about these being in this plastic is that they beat up quite fast. But once they hit that first level of wear and tear, where they go from flying from brand new to they've broken into like the first stage of wear and tear, they will stay there for such a long time, and they go from being like relatively neutral to like a stable neutral disc to you can throw it on a slight hyzer, they'll stand up, and you can really get them to do whatever you want, and all the way up until they get really beat up, and you can throw beautiful anhyzers with them. And I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling a whole lot on these. All I'm saying ultimately is these are one of probably my favorite discs of all time. Not that if these disappeared or were instantly hard to get a hold of, that I couldn't find a replacement. I have thrown the Luna, AVR, Warlocks. I used to throw the Nova. Doesn't really. It's still a throwing putter, but that one's different. That was a favorite of mine for a while, until I started throwing something. I had a slightly different throwing style and approach to my game, but either way, these are my favorites. I really like the feel of them. I really like the flight of them. The base plastic ones are significantly easier to get a hold of. The Opto ones are a little more, they're not rare, but they're just a little more difficult to get a hold of, even if it's just because you gotta spend a little bit more. But I don't want to encourage more or make it harder on myself to get a hold of Mercies, but at the same time, check out the Mercy. The Mercy is a great disc. It flies great, and if you get it and you don't like it, I'm sorry. Maybe we can work out a trade or something. So I throw those. What else am I missing? I know I rambled a lot. I'll touch on each category again in terms of building your bag after that. Okay, so I will now go to, let's say, mid-ranges. These are two different molds. These are all rocks from Innova, and then these are all Discraft buzzes. And these are probably two of the best mid-ranges ever made in the game. Not that there's not good copies or counterparts or whatever made by other companies, but these are like the OGs. The rocks and the buzz have been around for quite some time, and honestly, for good reason. They're great, great discs. It just really kind of comes down to hand feel. And the buzz does not have a bead, the rock does have a bead. They're both pretty neutral flying discs, and I've got a few of them because they're all in different, again, wear and tear. So I'll talk a little bit more about that once I get through all these categories of stuff, but these are the ones that I have a lot of. So when I was going out and practicing, I grabbed a few of them so I could throw them and see what I liked the most about them and what I could do with them. And then moving on to fairways, I have a few different, well, I guess a couple different molds. I have a couple FDs from Discmania. I've got a T-Bird 3 from Innova, which those are, in my opinion, basically the same disc, just in slightly different stabilities. And then I've got a Felon and a Firebird. Firebird is Innova, Felon is Latitude, or no, Felon is not Latitude, it's Dynamic discs. But they're basically the same disc. Again, I had two of them because I was trying different shots, and they fly slightly differently because one is much more overstable than the other. And then as for distance drivers that are in my bag right now, I would say probably one of the most popular distance drivers out there. I'm sure you can guess. Say it with me, Destroyer. And I think that is the disc that everyone is trying to emulate when they are coming up with their own distance driver. The Destroyer is also, I think, one of the best discs out there for good reason. I think it's probably not the farthest flying disc, but it is probably the most farthest flying accurate disc as long as you can have the arm speed for it. Maybe if you have lesser arm speed, maybe that's not the case. Or if you have more arm speed, honestly, I think you can just get a little more distance and still a lot of control out of it. But I have a few destroyers in my bag, again, for practicing. And then I have a couple random one-ofs because I got from my buddy Scott, where he didn't really want them or wasn't doing anything with them, and I just wanted to try them out. I got a Link from Discmania, I've got a PA4 from Prodigy, and I've got a Luna from Discraft, and then this random Scorch because I wanted to try it out too, and just messing around with it and see if it's something that I could use or work with or, you know, what have you. So that is a very long-winded way of saying I have putting putters, throwing putters. I completely missed the whole last section. My bad. Utility discs. These are all utility, and they are overstable and slow for approach shots or windy shots or something that you need some sort of utility with. Maybe that doesn't make sense in some people's head how that works when I say utility. That's just kind of where my head goes. So I have 4 harps in the one bag that I was using the other day because I didn't have access to my zones because they were stuck in, I just didn't have access to them. So I was using a bunch of harps, which are similar to zones, just a little straighter. I have a Cayman. I have a few anvils. I have an A3 and an A2. And then I have a pig and a couple zones. And they are all slightly different. And throwing all those just to see what it was that I preferred to use them for. So with that being said, now I have putting putters, I have throwing putters, I have utility discs, then I have mid-ranges, fairway drivers, and distance drivers. Am I missing anything else? I don't think so. So let's break down if I were to build a bag out of like if this is all the discs I own right here, I'm gonna build this bag right here to go out to any course and play and shoot, say, even par. Not amazing, not horrible. Maybe it's really good depending on the player that you are. So we're gonna go through each category. Yeah, we're gonna go through each category minus the putting putters, and we're gonna pick 3 discs. Utility is going to be slightly different, I think. Utility we'll save for last. We're going to go through all the categories, and we're just going to start with 3 discs. And I say 3 because you have essentially stable, understable, and overstable. What was I going to say? Yeah, so you have stable, understable, and overstable. And I really like having the least amount of molds that you can because I like the idea of having the same hand feel of a disc and having different wear and tears on those types of discs. But I can wrap my head around having different molds to fill these slots. So I'll go through it and tell you what it is that I'm thinking, or why I'm picking the disc that I'm picking. So I want to have, out of all my Mercies, these are my throwing putters, off the tee, approach type discs. I want to pick a neutral one. I'm going to pick this orange one right here. This one is fairly new. It's a little bit beat up. It has hit some trees, but it is still nice and neutral. Like, just flies straight. I can throw it hard. It's not really going to turn unless I force it to. It's very nice and neutral. For an understable one, I have this orange one that I've had for a long time. It is nice and understable. I can throw it on hyzer, and I can get it to stand up to flat and actually finish falling to the right and it is a great understable version of the Mercy. And then for overstable, I have this Opto one from, I don't know, the Winter Marksman League. I actually got this one from Lakeshore, but I have an overstable version of that disc now. And those are the only three that I'm going to pick. All these other ones, I don't need right now. I'm just building a bag for optimal or just a starting point to get your bag going. Next up is going to be mid-ranges. Now, how are we going to do this? Okay. I'll do both, but I'm going to put rocks in there because that's what these were to begin with. But I'll go with buzzes. So if I were to pick buzzes were the ones that I wanted to put in here. I'm going to pick a neutral, an understable, and an overstable. So if I'm going to pick a neutral one, I've got this nice Glow Z Buzz thing. Nice neutral flyer. I'm going to go understable. I've got this really cool, like pale pink. It's been around for a while. I think you can tell. Nice and understable. And then for an overstable, actually I've got this nice ESP one that is slightly more overstable than the rest. So, well, I'll move these over here. But I have these rocks, which I was actually really enjoying throwing slightly more than the buzzes recently. So for a neutral one, I have this Champion one that I got from a tournament in at Seymour Lake Park or whatever. The Hands to the Sun tournament. Great tournament, great course. Nice neutral flying rock. It is a premium plastic, so it's going to stay like that for quite some time. I really like this disc, and a nice bonus is I like the color and the stamp and stuff, which is cool too. But the most important part is the hand feel and everything. Feels amazing, flies great. I love throwing this one. And then for an overstable one, this is technically a Rock X3, but it is essentially a rock. It's just got a slightly more blunt nose to it, but the hand feel to me is not any different, and it is actually a very nice counterpart to the rock being the overstable version. I've had this one for quite some time. It is still quite overstable, and I love this, and it's got a great hand feel. Freaking awesome disc. And then I have this rock. I don't remember if I found this or no, I bought it from, I don't remember. Anyways, this is a nice DX rock that is obviously very, very worn, very understable, reliably understable. I love this disc, and a nice bonus with DX rocks, since the rock has been out a long, long time, your ability to find worn, used, and abused DX rocks or base plastic rocks, there's plenty out there, and you can buy them for cheap. I think I got this one for $5 from a Play It Again. My favorite rock I ever bought was from a local. It was a Ching rock. Blah blah blah. That doesn't matter. I bought it for like $2 or $3, and it was hilariously understable. And I love that disc. It's another disc. If I can find and get back that, there will be a bounty for that disc. But this is the understable mid-range. So far, I have my putting putters. I have my throwing putters. I have stable, understable, overstable. I have my mid-ranges. I have stable, understable, overstable. They are the same molds in slightly different wear and tears. Next up, we're going to go with fairway drivers. Now, fairway drivers are going to be slightly different because there are, like with anything, there's many molds, but there's a few different slots in the fairway department in my head of what that would be. I originally started out mainly an Innova thrower, just for the fact that I really liked all the stuff that they were making at the time when I first started, and all the stuff that was given to me or that I started throwing just happened to be Innova, so I started banking all that information in terms of Innova. So whenever I'm building a bag, I'm kind of thinking of, like, how does this compare to an Innova thing that I was throwing? And what is my version of, say, like, how does this compare to an Innova rock? Like, would this fill the slot of Innova rock for me? would this fill the slot of Innova Destroyer for me? And like, how does it compare? Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, moving into that, the fairways that I threw a lot were Innova T-Bird and Innova Firebird. I think some of the most popular fairway discs out there have been around for quite some time. Now, I'll start with what my T-Bird slot would be. And I had, like I was saying earlier, I have Discmania's FDs. Now, these are essentially a T-Bird, not quite as overstable. I don't like saying that. They're a little more neutral than a T-Bird. A T-Bird is going to slow down and bite a little harder. The FD, not quite as much. I think the FD flies a little straighter for longer than a T-Bird does, but the flight is essentially the same. The idea behind it is essentially the same. So that's kind of why I have 3 FDs or 3 T-Birds in my head, even though one is technically a T-Bird, even more technically, it's a T-Bird 3, and then these are FDs. Now I have this FD because this is the most stable neutral FD that I have, which I will pick for that slot in my bag. And then I have how do I want to do this? Okay, so this is going to be man, how do I want to Okay. I think I kind of got it figured out. You're going to have to bear with me here. Hopefully that's still okay, that's still picking up. We're going on like an hour. That's wild. Okay. So this is going to be my neutral T-Bird fairway type shot. And then the understable is going to be this FD, a little more wear and tear. I can get it to fight against its natural flight path, and it nice understable. It's great. And then the T-Bird 3, slightly different hand feel, a little more sharp on here, but it's still relatively the same. More importantly, feels really nice in my hand and has a very similar flight to the FD, but it's a little more overstable in comparison. So if I want to throw an FD with a little more overstability in it, I'm going to be picking this T-Bird 3. And then on the second part of fairway drivers, I guess would be a little more utility, would be the Firebird slot. So I have 2 Firebirds here, even though this one here is a Firebird, and then this one here is a Felon. They are very similar in feel, very similar in flight, but this one, even though it's quite overstable, you can throw it very hard. It's going to go straight, and then it's going to bite very hard. Really nice for skip shots, really nice for fighting in the wind. And then this one here is an absolute monster compared to it in overstability. This is going to be, it does not go very far. You got a whole lot of wind that you're dealing with. If you happen to have a nice overhand thumber tomahawk type shot, which I don't, I just have it for utility or get out of jail purposes. Again, really great discs for those types of shots. So this is still fairway, but also slash utility. What else do I got? Hopefully that makes sense. I don't typically have an understable version of something like this. A lot of these discs I throw in for sidearms, and then I throw for spike hyzers. They're very good for those types of shots, in my opinion. Maybe you have a slightly different experience. Again, one of those could be overhand shots. They're, I think, very popular for overhand type shots. They fit really good in the hand, whether you're tucking your thumb in there, tucking your fingers in there, and then throwing a huge overstable shot. You have a nice swooping this, that, whatever. Anyways, I hope that makes sense. And then, then we have distance drivers. And these are meant to get you distance off the tee. So for an overstable, understable, neutral, we've got a nice neutral flying Eco Destroyer. These are awesome. If you can get a hold of Eco Destroyers, they're some of the nicest destroyers out there. They're not the most overstable, they're not the most understable. They're just in that perfect, sweet, neutral spot where they can just fly really far as long as the shape's good. The shape has to be good. That will be maybe for another video or something. I'm not exactly sure how that'll work, but this will be the neutral one. Overstable one, I've got this Halo Destroyer. It's a Calvin Heimberg series. This thing is quite beefy. I've chipped this or chunked this off the concrete a few times. It's kind of scuffed up, but it still retains its overstability greatly. And then for understable, I'm going to have this one here, pretty beat up, just more understable than the other ones, so I have options. So that way I have a destroyer that is neutral, understable, and overstable. What else do we got here? So I've got throwing putters, I've got mid-ranges, I've got the fairways, I've got distance drivers, and now I'll go on to the other utility type discs, which I guess they could fall into a couple different categories too. One of them, they could fall in the speed that they are. One is technically a mid-range and another is technically a putter, but they're not very few times have I seen people putting with something like zones. The only person that I can think of that putts with anything similarly, if they still do, is Michael Johansson. I believe the last time I had seen him putting, he was putting with ringers, which are real similar to the zone. They are an overstable, low-profile disc that is as slow as a putter. So with these types of discs, they're not meant, you're not really meant to have a stable, understable, and overstable. Even though you could, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but they are more utility type discs. And your bag, you can tweak however it is that you want. Again, this is kind of like where my head's at when I'm building my bag and how I'm seeing my bag getting built. So I like to carry 2 zones for that slow putter style speed, but having something that is quite overstable. And in most circumstances, these are getting thrown for sidearm. I do throw them sometimes for backhand, but not as much as I'm throwing for sidearm. But they are great overstable discs. There are other ones out there that are great too. I think I prefer the Pig more from Innova than the zones because they have a little more beef to them and they still glide and you still get distance out of them. More, I think the hand feels a little better to me than the zone does, but the zone is a little more easily accessible than the Pigs are. Now, unless you want a certain type of plastic, which would be our Pro Pigs. Not my personal favorite. They get beat up way too easily, and they feel like you're throwing a rubber band. Personally, not my thing. But if I could get the nice feeling Pigs, I would prefer the Pigs, but since I can't, these feel great. A lot easier to get they're a lot more easily accessible. So the zone, still a great choice, great option. So we got these 2 for utility, and then you have, maybe you want something a little faster, which I tend to like, and I like having at least 1, maybe 2 of these, which is basically going to be a faster version of the zone. And that is going to be any of these here, and one of them is slightly different. This is the A3 from Prodigy, which is an awesome disc. If you're familiar with the Gator from Innova at all, it is very similar in look, but it is not as deep as a Gator. It is basically a squished Gator. It's pretty low profile, but it's got a bead. Flies amazing and very reliable. And then these 3 here are all essentially the same disc. These two are anvils, and then this is an A2. They are all basically beadless, overstable, faster zones. Um, so if you want a little more distance and you're uncomfortable throwing a zone, like say you'd like to throw a zone however far you throw a zone, but you need maybe 50 more feet, but you feel really inconsistent at that type of power, something like this might fill that gap for you. Or maybe this is just not your thing at all. But personally, that's kind of how I view it. If I'd like to throw a zone, but it's kind of out of my comfort range for throwing that distance, I'd like to throw something a little faster. And what I actually have been bagging are these two here. So even though they're different feel, this one's beadless, this one's beaded, the flight of them, they both feel very nice in the hand. The hand feel is slightly different in the shape of the disc, but they complement each other very well. So this is basically an overstable, fast zone, and then this is a beaded zone that flies straight for a while. You can still throw it quite hard, but it's going to go straight for a lot longer before it bites very hard. So it's kind of a straighter, faster zone, and then you just have a faster zone. So we've got putting putters, we've got throwing putters, we've got mid-ranges, we've got the fairways, we've got the distance drivers, and then we've got the utility. So what does that look like? Well, let's put this all in our bag. So, putting putters right in the pocket. I mean, it's meant for two. I like three, but we're gonna smush three in there. You can organize your bag however the heck you want. I like keeping it categorized pretty much how I was saying. So always these slower discs, putters, go in one side first. Then the mid-ranges will go right next to those. And then you've got fairways. I usually go T-birds and then the Firebirds. And then you've got your distance drivers. Actually, that's slightly different than how I normally do it. I actually do the distance drivers. So I go putter, mid-range, distance driver, fairways, and then usually like the random utility discs. So I'll put those utility discs there, and then on this bag, usually I put one right here, which I don't know, we'll put this, stop it. We'll put this zone right here, and then we'll put that zone in with the other ones. So you kind of have putters, mid-ranges. Really, these should go right here with the mid-ranges, because they are mid-ranges technically, just the utility mid-ranges. So putters, mid-ranges, distance drivers, fairway drivers. And then the only one that is really missing here for me would be like a roller disc, which to me is a road runner, but that's whatever. So that's basically how I start building my bag and kind of tweak things from there. And hopefully that helps you. One other thing that I will mention, I mean, it's not a disc, but it's a towel. These are Monster Junior detailing, like card detailing towels from our local Meijer. I think you get two or three for 12 bucks or something, or 10 bucks. They're not super cheap, but they're not crazy expensive, and these things rule. These things are so damn good. I highly recommend, if you see these or come across these, just give it a shot. That they're awesome. You gotta like those. It's really plush. They're microfiber towels, just like the other, well, kind of just like the other ones because they're both microfiber, but these are really plush versus those other ones that are just kind of really thin and crappy. You don't get too many uses out of them, in my opinion. I think having these towels are sick. But yeah, that's basically where I'd start with building my bag. I hope that is not, I mean, it was rambly. Don't get me wrong. that was talking for a while, trying to gather my thoughts for a bit, but
Yeah. I think I'm gonna take this bag and go play now. Before it looks like it's getting ready to maybe rain again. But I need some more disc golf in my life. So I'm gonna go do that. And hopefully that helps you out. Hopefully if you stayed until the very end here, let me know what let me know what I did right. Let me know what I did wrong. Let me know what you do differently. Let me know if you hated or liked this video for the length or my rambling, or if what I was saying makes sense, or I wasn't concise enough, or maybe I didn't give too much information, or maybe there's something that I left out. You know, I'm trying to get better at this. I want to get better at this. I'm not sure where I want to go in the sport, really. It'd be cool to get back out and play tournaments again. So that's something in the works. I want to get out there, but I gotta start somewhere. And if I want to play well, I gotta start playing. And I have the ability there still. I just gotta work on it some more, and I want to do that. So we'll see. And if it's just a YouTube thing, that's cool too, because I get to play disc golf and I get to share and experience it with a bunch of other disc golfers, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. So, yeah. If you're still here, thanks for watching. I love you guys. You guys are awesome, and go throw some stuff. Go throw discs. It's so pretty to watch discs fly. You know, especially when you see how you want it thrown. You can envision how you want it to fly, and then you do it, and it does exactly what you envisioned. Man, that is awesome. So, yeah. All right, I think I'm done. Bye. Mwah.